All right, let's dive into a story that is just fascinating. It's all about strategy, regulation, and, let's be honest, a whole lot of money. We are going to unpack how the tiny Mediterranean island of Malta, and I mean tiny, managed to become an absolute giant in the world of online gambling.
And yeah, it's a real head-scratcher, right? This wasn't some lucky break. This was a calculated, decades-long bet that paid off in a massive way. So how on earth did they do it? Well, to really get it, you first have to understand the mind-boggling scale of the industry we're even talking about.
Just let that number sink in for a second. $81 billion. That's what the global market was worth in 2023, and it's only getting bigger. And the incredible thing is, Malta didn't just get a piece of that pie. In a lot of ways, they helped write the recipe for the whole thing. They built this trusted, regulated home that the biggest companies in the world just couldn't ignore. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at how Malta became this iGaming superpower. Then, we'll get into the details of their regulatory blueprint, their secret sauce. After that, we'll cover the high cost of getting in, how you actually get a license, and finally, we'll wrap up by looking at what the future might hold.
I mean, this really is the ultimate underdog story. You've got this tiny island nation, not a lot of natural resources, and it decides, you know what? We're going to become the world's go-to spot for online gaming. It was such a bold move, but it worked spectacularly.
You know, their journey started pretty humbly, way back in 1922 with a local lottery. But the real spark came in 2001. That's when Malta became the very first EU country to start regulating online gambling. Then, in 2004, the floodgates opened. They joined the European Union, and suddenly a Maltese license meant access to a gigantic market. And the 2018 Gaming Act? That was them just fine-tuning the engine, making everything simpler and stronger.
So what is this secret sauce everyone talks about? Well, it's this incredibly well-crafted regulatory system that somehow manages to be super strict, but also really attractive to businesses. It's a tough balance to strike, and at the very center of it all is one key organization.
And here it is, the Malta Gaming Authority, or the MGA. Think of them as the master architects and the chief referees of this entire world. They handle everything from handing out the licenses to protecting players and making sure everything is above board. Seriously, an MGA license has become a global seal of approval.
Now, one of the smartest things the MGA did was split the market into two clear lanes. On the one hand, you have B2C, or business to consumer. These are the online casinos and betting sites you actually visit as a player. On the other hand, you've got B2B, business to business. These are the companies that build the games and the software that power all those B2C sites. And when I say their framework covers everything, I mean everything. Type 1, that's your classic casino stuff like slots and roulette. Type 2 is all about sports betting. Type 3 covers games where you play against other people, like poker. And Type 4 is for games based on skill, like fantasy sports. This wide net means they can regulate the entire industry from top to bottom.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing for operators, but hold on. Getting into this exclusive club is not easy, and it is definitely not cheap. And in a weird way, that high barrier to entry is exactly why a Maltese license is considered the gold standard. It weeds out anyone who isn't totally serious.
The whole journey starts by writing a check for 5,000 euros. And that's non-refundable. That's just the cover charge to get your foot in the door, so the MGA will even start looking at your application. It's the first of many, many costs.
And the costs keep coming. For the B2B guys, the annual license fees are actually tied to how well you're doing. As you can see, they scale up with your revenue. So smaller companies might pay 25,000 euros, while the heavy hitters are paying 35,000. This ensures that every single operator is financially stable and in it for the long haul.
So you might be thinking, wow, those are some steep fees. But here's the trade-off, and it is a huge one. A gaming tax of just 5% on revenue from players physically in Malta. You combine that with some other very attractive corporate tax rules, and suddenly you see why it's such a powerful magnet.
But here's the thing. You can't just write a check and get a license. No way. The money is almost the easy part. The compliance hurdles are intense. That fit and proper assessment, it's an incredibly deep background check on every single key person in your company. They look at your finances, your reputation, everything. And on top of that, you need a perfect business plan and rock-solid systems to prevent money laundering. So, with all those obstacles, how does a company actually navigate this whole thing? Well, the MGA has laid out a very clear, if very demanding, path to getting approved. Let's walk through it.
It all starts online, submitting the application and paying that fee. Then comes the deep dive into your people. After that, your business plan gets put under a microscope. If you manage to pass those stages, all of your technology has to go through a tough audit by an independent company. Only after you clear every single one of those hurdles do you get your license, which is good for 10 years.
Okay, so we've seen how Malta built this incredible empire. But what about today? What does the future look like? Let's break down the pros and cons for any company thinking about setting up shop there right now.
And it really is a classic trade-off. On the one hand, the advantages are massive. You get that prestigious license, access to the entire EU market, great tax rates, and a skilled local workforce. But the other side of the scale is heavy too. You're jumping into a super competitive market, and staying compliant is a constant, expensive effort.
You know, a gaming law expert named Simon Planzer put it perfectly. He said Malta's iGaming sector isn't just growing, it's actually redefining what a modern, regulated, and business-friendly market can even look like. It's always evolving, and that's the key.
And this, right here, this is the real prize at the end of the rainbow. An MGA license isn't just a permit, it's a passport. It gives a company instant credibility and unlocks the door to the entire European Union, one of the biggest and wealthiest markets on the planet. That is the real jackpot.
Which leaves us with one final big question. Malta played its cards perfectly to get where it is today. But in an industry that changes at lightning speed, with new tech and new rules popping up all the time, the game is never really over. Can this tiny island keep holding its winning hand? Well, only time will tell.